Have you ever been betrayed by someone you loved? This story will resonate with anyone who's experienced the pain of losing a friend and a lover in the same blow. Get ready to feel every emotion as I share my story of heartbreak and forgiveness. The world tilted on its axis the moment I saw them. It wasn't a slow, gentle shift, but a violent, nauseating lurch that sent my stomach plummeting to my knees. There, across the bustling high street, standing hand in hand, were Liam and Chloe. Liam, my Liam, the man I had spent 3 tumultuous years loving, arguing with, and ultimately, breaking up with, just 6 months prior. And Chloe, my best friend since primary school, the girl who knew my deepest fears and my most embarrassing childhood stories. The girl who had held my hand through countless heartbreaks, including, ironically, the one Liam had inflicted. I froze, a human statue amidst the Friday evening rush. The sounds of traffic, the chatter of shoppers, all faded into a distant hum. All I could see was their intertwined fingers, the easy familiarity of their posture, the way Chloe laughed at something Liam whispered, a laugh I knew intimately, a laugh that had once been reserved for me. My breath caught in my throat, a sharp, painful gasp. Shock was an inadequate word for the seismic shift happening within me. It was as if the very foundations of my reality had cracked wide open, revealing a gaping chasm of betrayal and disbelief. Liam and I had ended things messily, as most young loves do. There were tears, accusations, a period of frosty silence, and then, a tentative truce born of shared history. We'd even met for coffee a few times, a fragile attempt at friendship, a lingering hope, perhaps, that we might one day find our way back to each other. Chloe, meanwhile, had been my rock. She'd listened to my endless laments, validated my anger, and offered practical advice on how to move on. We'd spent countless nights dissecting the downfall of my relationship, always ending with the comforting refrain, "He wasn't good enough for you, Liv. You deserve better." And I believed her. I really did. Until now. The history of our trio was as interwoven as a Celtic knot. Chloe, Liam, and I. We'd been inseparable through our late teens, navigating awkward school dances and first legal pints. When Liam and I started dating, Chloe was our biggest cheerleader. She'd always been there, a constant, a given. The idea of her and Liam, in any romantic capacity, was not just unthinkable, it was an impossibility, a gross violation of the unwritten rules of friendship and loyalty. The initial emotional response was a fiery cocktail of all-consuming hurt and a simmering, toxic confusion. How long had this been going on? Was it before Liam and I broke up? Had Chloe been comforting me, all while harboring feelings for my ex? The questions swirled like a tempest in my mind, each one a fresh stab to an already lacerated heart. Navigating the emotional roller coaster. The days that followed were a blur of intense, conflicting emotions. My mind felt like a battlefield, 2 opposing armies clashing relentlessly. On one side, anger, hot and incandescent, flared at Chloe for her perceived treachery, at Liam for his apparent lack of consideration, and at the universe for this cruel twist of fate. How could she, my confidant, my sister by choice, have done this? And Liam, who had once sworn he'd never hurt me, had now orchestrated this brutal, public revelation. Then came the suffocating blanket of sadness. A profound grief not just for the lost relationship with Liam, but for the shattering of my friendship with Chloe. That bond, which I had considered unbreakable, a cornerstone of my very identity, felt utterly obliterated. I mourned the loss of our shared laughter, our whispered secrets, our effortless understanding. The jealousy was a bitter, unwelcome companion, gnawing at me from the inside. I pictured them together, doing the things Liam and I used to do, saying the things we used to say. Each imagined scenario was a fresh twist of the knife. Processing the betrayal felt like trying to grasp smoke. It was intangible yet pervasive, seeping into every corner of my existence. I found myself replaying every conversation, every interaction, searching for clues, for signs I had missed. Had Chloe's comfort been feigned? Had her advice been designed to push me away from Liam, to clear a path for herself? The internal conflict was relentless. One moment, I was consumed by a desire to lash out, to scream, to demand answers. The next, I felt a deep, debilitating ache for the friendship I had lost, a longing for Chloe's familiar presence, her comforting voice. It was a bizarre, almost perverse, feeling to simultaneously feel such intense hurt from her, and yet, in moments of weakness, to instinctively want to reach out to her for support. But how could I? The very person I would normally lean on during a crisis was the architect of this particular heartbreak. The difficulty lay in the dual nature of the wound. It wasn't just a breakup, it was a rupture of two significant relationships simultaneously. It was a betrayal from both sides, an emotional pincer movement that left me reeling. I felt a profound sense of isolation. Who could I talk to about this? Who would understand the complexity of being hurt by your ex and your best friend in the same breath? The usual avenues for support felt blocked, either by their involvement or by my own shame and confusion. The difficult decision. The days turned into weeks, a slow, torturous crawl through a landscape of emotional fog. I knew I couldn't exist in this state indefinitely. The internal debate raged, staying silent versus expressing feelings. My initial instinct, fueled by pride and a deep-seated fear of further humiliation, was to vanish, to pretend I hadn't seen them, to simply let the silence speak volumes. What good would confronting them do? Would it bring back what was lost? Or would it just amplify the pain, expose my vulnerability, and solidify their new reality? The idea of confronting Chloe, specifically, was terrifying. The thought of her possible explanations, her justifications, or worse, her indifference, filled me with dread. What if she denied it, or downplayed it? What if she said she fell in love with him after we broke up, as if that made it okay? And Liam? I was afraid of the casual apology, the platitudes, the almost regret that would inevitably fall short of acknowledging the depth of the damage. Yet, the silence was a suffocating weight. It festered, allowing my imagination to run wild, conjuring scenarios more painful than any truth. The questions remained unanswered, a constant echo in my mind. If I stayed silent, I risked carrying this burden indefinitely, allowing the resentment to poison me from the inside out. I would be denying myself any form of closure, leaving an open wound that might never truly heal. The potential impact on the friendship was already catastrophic. Silence would only ensure its permanent demise. And on the ex-relationship, it would be a silent acknowledgement of their new partnership, a quiet surrender. The alternative was to speak. To confront them. To demand an explanation. This path, though fraught with anxiety, offered the possibility of truth, however painful. It offered the chance to reclaim my voice, to assert my hurt, and to perhaps, just perhaps, begin the arduous journey towards understanding. The consequences of this decision were monumental. A confrontation could lead to a heated argument, an ugly scene, further damage to fragile relationships. It could also lead to unexpected revelations, apologies, or at least, a clearer picture of their actions. There was a glimmer of hope, faint though it was, that by expressing my feelings, I could begin to untangle the Gordian knot of pain and confusion. After much deliberation, countless sleepless nights, and tea-soaked pillows, I made the difficult decision: I would confront Chloe Faust. It felt like the more intimate, and therefore, potentially more devastating, conversation. Finding closure and moving forward. The conversation with Chloe was raw, tearful, and ultimately, clarifying. There was no easy explanation, no magical words that could erase the sting of betrayal. She admitted to a growing attraction after Liam and I had ended things, a gradual slide into something more. She apologized, her voice thick with regret, for not telling me sooner, for the secrecy, for the pain she had caused. It wasn't the full absolution I craved, but it was a start. The confrontation with Liam was more perfunctory, less emotionally charged. He expressed regret for the situation but maintained he had done nothing wrong after our breakup. Their narratives, though different, converged on one point: they were together. The air, though still heavy with unspoken grief, felt a little lighter. The journey of healing and processing the situation was not a linear path, but a winding road with many detours. There were days of intense anger, moments of profound sadness, and fleeting glimpses of acceptance. I started by giving myself permission to feel everything, without judgment. I cried when I needed to cry, screamed into pillows when the rage became unbearable, and allowed myself to wallow in self-pity for short, controlled bouts. Crucially, I leaned on my other trusted friends, those who were not entangled in this painful triangle. They listened without judgment, offered comfort, and reminded me of my worth. Self-care became paramount. I rediscovered my love for hiking, spent hours lost in books, and dedicated time to activities that brought me genuine joy, however small. I started therapy, a space where I could unpack the complex layers of my emotions without fear of burdening others. This external support was invaluable, providing perspective and helping me to slowly, painstakingly, piece myself back together. Navigating relationships after betrayal is a delicate dance. It requires a conscious effort to rebuild trust, not necessarily with those who betrayed you, but with the concept of trust itself. I learned that trust is not a static entity, it's something owned and re-owned, a fragile edifice that can be shattered in an instant. I learned to set firmer boundaries, both for myself and in my interactions with others. It was a painful lesson, but an essential one. Sometimes, letting go of a relationship, even a deeply cherished one, is necessary for your own well-being. I wasn't ready to forgive Chloe, not yet, but I was learning to accept the new reality, to acknowledge the past without letting it define my future. The lessons learned. This whole devastating experience, as painful as it was, became a crucible in which crucial lessons were forged. The most resounding of these was the absolute importance of communication in all relationships. The secrecy, the unspoken truths, the assumptions, these were the silent killers of my friendship and, arguably, contributed to the messy end of my relationship with Liam. Had Chloe been upfront about her feelings, had Liam been clearer about his intentions, perhaps the fallout, though still painful, would not have been so utterly blindsiding. Open, honest dialogue, even when difficult, is the bedrock of healthy connections. I learned invaluable lessons about the nature of friendship itself. True friendship, I realized, is built on unwavering loyalty, respect, and transparency. It's about celebrating successes and weathering storms together, but it's also about having the courage to have uncomfortable conversations, to prioritize the well-being of the other person, even when it's inconvenient. I also learned that not all friendships are meant to last forever, and that sometimes, outgrowing people or having different values means parting ways, however painful. The incident also taught me about trust, its fragility, its necessity, and the long, arduous process of rebuilding it once it's broken. I learned to trust my instincts more, to recognize red flags, and to protect my emotional boundaries. And finally, it taught me about boundaries themselves. I had been too permeable, too willing to bend for others, too afraid of upsetting the apple cart. This betrayal forced me to draw clear lines, to define what I would and wouldn't tolerate, and to assert my needs with unwavering conviction. If there's one thing I can encourage anyone to reflect on from my experience, it's this: prioritize healthy relationships above all else. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, clear communication, and an unwavering commitment to honesty. They may not always be easy, but they are worth the effort. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from relationships that no longer serve your growth or your peace. My heart still bears the scars of that unexpected twist, but those scars are a testament to resilience, a reminder of the valuable, albeit painful, lessons learned.